Chapter 1. The Fire of Discipline. You wake each morning already at war. Your body moves through the motions of life. But your mind is restless, scattered, divided between endless distractions and silent guilt. You feel the weight of unfinished goals pressing on your chest, the workout you skipped, the skill you never mastered, the dream that seems to fade further every year. You tell yourself you'll do better tomorrow, but tomorrow always comes dressed as today. You want control, but your habits own you. You crave strength, but comfort whispers too sweetly. You chase confidence, but fear hides beneath every decision you delay. This is the hidden battlefield of the modern world, not the clash of swords, but the clash of attention. You fight invisible enemies: fatigue, doubt, overthinking, comparison, the need to be seen, and the fear of being ordinary. Most people lose this battle before the day begins because they have never been taught how to fight. But long before smartphones, noise, and chaos ruled our minds, there lived a warrior who mastered the art of control, Tomoe Gozen. The woman whose name echoed louder than the war drums of men. Her legend is not just of strength, but of stillness, in an age where only men were expected to fight. She rode into battle as if born of thunder, her sword flashing through the storm. Yet her greatest power was not her weapon, it was her ruthlessness with herself. Where others flinched, she stood unmoved. Where others hesitated, she cut cleanly. Tomoe Gozen's secret was simple and merciless. To live without surrender, one must train the mind harder than the blade. And today her philosophy may be the cure to your scattered, restless, easily broken modern self. What you are about to hear is not entertainment. It's a discipline that can reshape your life if you're willing to bleed for it. If you feel weak, if you feel like your potential is trapped under layers of fear and hesitation, then listen carefully, because the same principles that forged warriors centuries ago can forge you now. Stay with me until the end. Subscribe, not because it's a button, but because this path is a dojo, one where your spirit is sharpened, not softened. What follows are the 7 ruthless lessons of Tomoe Gozen. Lessons that will not comfort you, but will make you unbreakable, if you dare to live them. Chapter 2. The War Drums of Shinano. In the year when winter refused to die, the province of Shinano trembled beneath endless conflict. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic scent of blood. Across the plains rode Tomoe Gozen, her armor lacquered black, her horse a streak of fire through the mist. They said she could split a man and his pride with a single strike. They said she smiled at storms and laughed at death. But they never saw what her enemies never understood, that her calm came not from arrogance, but from mastery over fear. Tomoe had learned early that fear cannot be destroyed. It can only be commanded. She had faced defeat, betrayal, and isolation. She had buried comrades and fought alone in lands that despised her for being both warrior and woman. And yet, she kept her discipline as others lost their souls to rage or despair. To her, discipline was not a prison. It was freedom. One spring evening, as the last sakura petals fell over the training fields, a young girl arrived at Tomoe's camp. Her name was Aya, a peasant's daughter with the eyes of a falcon but the trembling hands of a child. She had heard the stories and begged for apprenticeship. "I want to fight," she said, kneeling before the legendary warrior. Tomoe studied her silently, her gaze sharp as steel. "Why?" Aya hesitated. "Because I want to be strong, I want to protect others." Tomoe turned away. "A noble lie? You want to protect yourself from feeling weak? You want to silence your shame? That is not strength, that is fear dressed in armor." Aya lowered her head, her voice trembling. "Then teach me, master. Teach me how to be fearless." Tomoe's tone was calm, but her eyes burned like the edge of a drawn blade. "Fearless?" she repeated. "Only fools are fearless, warriors are terrified, and still they act." And so Aya's training began, not with a sword, but with stillness. Chapter 3. The Hesitant Blade. The mornings in Tomoe's camp were brutal. The wind from the mountains cut through the tents like knives. Aya woke before dawn to carry water, sweep the dirt, polish armor, and run the hill path until her legs trembled. There were no compliments, no comfort, and no shortcuts. At first, she believed it was a mistake. She wanted swordsmanship, not servitude. "Why must I do this?" she finally asked one morning as frost bit her hands. "I came to learn combat, not chores." Tomoe looked at her without emotion. "If your spirit breaks doing small tasks, It will shatter in battle. The warrior who cannot obey discipline will never command her own mind. Aya said nothing, but deep inside, resentment stirred each night as she collapsed into her mat. She wondered if this harsh woman was simply cruel. Her friends back home laughed at her for leaving, her body ached, her confidence eroded, and her will began to crack. During training, her blade wavered with every swing. Her eyes flicked away from her opponents. Her thoughts split between fear of failure and hunger for approval. Each motion was an argument between who she wanted to be and who she was. Tomoe saw it all. She did not scold nor comfort. She simply waited. Chapter 4, The Breaking of the Apprentice. One day, during a sparring match before the others, Aya's opponent struck her down effortlessly. Laughter rippled through the group. Humiliation burned hotter than pain. She fled into the woods, choking on tears, her sword abandoned in the mud. Tomoe found her sitting by the riverbank, staring at her reflection as if it were a stranger. Without a word, Tomoe tossed a wooden sword onto the ground. Aya flinched. "I'm not ready." Tomoe's voice was cold. "You think readiness is a feeling? You believe warriors wait until fear leaves them?" Aya's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. I try, but I keep failing." Tomoe stepped closer, her presence heavy, commanding. "You fail because you wish to avoid pain. You want strength without struggle, mastery without monotony. You think you're different? That your feelings matter more than your duty. That is why you will always lose." Aya turned away, but Tomoe's voice struck like a whip. "Cry later. Pick up your weapon." Aya looked down at the wooden sword. Her hands shook as she gripped it. She swung once, weakly, then again, harder, until the sound of the wood against air echoed through the trees. Her tears dried, her breath steadied. Tomoe nodded slightly. "Good, you begin to understand. The blade you swing is not to cut the enemy. It is to cut through yourself." Aya said nothing, but something within her shifted, a small spark amid the ashes of shame. That night, Tomoe watched her apprentice from afar. Aya trained alone, repeating the same movements over and over. The wooden sword cutting through the night air like a heartbeat. The warrior smiled faintly. "The breaking has begun," she thought. "Now, the rebuilding can start, because in every warrior's life, there comes a moment when the outer enemy disappears, and the real battle begins, the one against hesitation, self-pity, and comfort." Tomoe Gozen had lived through that war her entire life, and now it was Aya's turn. The lessons she would learn next would shape her into something more than strong. They would make her ruthless in the purest sense, unflinching in pursuit of truth and mastery, and in that pursuit, weakness would have no place left to hide. Chapter 5, The 7 Ruthless Lessons. The morning after Aya's breaking, the camp was wrapped in fog. The mountains loomed like silent watchers, and the smell of wet earth carried the memory of yesterday's storm. Aya knelt before Tomoe, who stood unmoving, her armor reflecting pale light. The older warrior's expression was neither kind nor cruel. It was simply clear. "Yesterday you died," Tomoe said, "not in flesh, but in weakness. From this day you will learn what it means to live as one who cannot be broken. These are the 7 ruthless lessons. They will not comfort you, but they will make you invincible." Aya lowered her head. "I'm ready." Tomoe's gaze sharpened. "No one is ever ready. That's why we begin now." Lesson 1, Be fierce in stillness. Tomoe led Aya to the river. The surface rippled in the morning wind. "You wish to strike with precision," she said, "but your mind trembles before your body moves. A trembling mind cannot cut." She tossed a leaf into the river. "You must be still like the water before you can move like its current. When the body is still, fear becomes loud. When fear becomes loud, you can finally learn to control it." Aya sat on the bank, trying to quiet her thoughts. Her pulse was quick, her breathing uneven. Tomoe spoke softly. "Control is not the absence of emotion. It is emotion's obedience to your will." Modern neuroscience now confirms this truth. Studies at Kyoto University show that when the breath slows, the prefrontal cortex strengthens, suppressing the amygdala's panic signals. The warrior's ancient meditation was a neurological weapon. Calm mind. Steady action. Tomoe nodded toward Aya. "Be fierce in stillness, for stillness is the beginning of all strikes." Lesson 2, Choose pain over comfort. The next morning, Aya awoke to find Tomoe waiting with 2 buckets of water balanced on a pole. "Carry them up the mountain," she commanded. The slope was steep, the air thin, and each step burned. Aya's arms trembled, her vision blurred. Halfway up, she dropped to her knees, gasping. Tomoe watched from above. "You stopped because you hurt," she said. "But pain is the language of growth. Comfort whispers lies. Pain tells the truth." Aya gritted her teeth and stood again. Every muscle screamed, but she climbed, step after step. When she reached the top, Tomoe took one bucket and poured the water into the soil. "This is how you strengthen your spirit. You pour out what is easy to make room for what is hard." A researcher at the University of Tokyo once observed that controlled discomfort like endurance training or cold exposure releases dopamine more sustainably than pleasure. The body learns to find reward in effort, not escape. Tomoe knew this centuries ago. "When you choose comfort," she said, "you choose decay. But when you choose pain willingly, you become untouchable." Lesson 3. Respect fear, then cut it down. That night, the wind howled through the tents. Aya confessed softly, "Master, I still fear everything, the duel, the laughter, even failure." Tomoe smiled slightly. "Good, you should fear. Fear is proof that you have something to lose, but you must use it. A warrior without fear is reckless. A warrior ruled by fear is useless. Fear is a horse, wild, strong, and dangerous. Ride it, and it becomes your ally. Run from it, and it tramples you." Aya pondered this. "How do I ride fear?" "By meeting it every morning," Tomoe said. "Do one thing each day that makes your heart tremble. Speak truth when silence is easier. Push forward when your mind screams to stop. The edge of fear is where you find yourself." The principle is timeless. Exposure therapy and modern psychology follows the same pattern. When you face fear repeatedly in small doses, your brain learns mastery through familiarity. "Respect fear," Tomoe said, "but never kneel before it." Lesson 4. Detach from approval. Days later, Aya performed her drills perfectly. The other trainees watched, whispering admiration. For the first time, she smiled, proud of herself. Tomoe's voice sliced through her joy like a blade. "You are smiling for the wrong reason," she said. Aya blinked. "Because I did well?" "No," Tomoe said, "because they saw you do well." "You are still chained to their eyes." She stepped closer. "Approval is a drug. It gives warmth for a moment and leaves you empty after. When you act to impress, you lose your purpose. When you act for the act itself, you are free." Aya looked down, ashamed. Tomoe lifted her chin gently. "Do not confuse humility with weakness. A warrior can bow without shrinking, but she never lets another's gaze decide her worth." Tomoe turned away, her voice low. "Detach from approval. When you no longer need to be seen, you can finally see clearly." Lesson 5. Strike without hesitation. In the courtyard, Tomoe drew 2 wooden swords and threw one to Aya. "Attack," she said. Aya hesitated. "Now?" Tomoe didn't move. "If you must ask, you've already lost." Aya lunged forward awkwardly. Tomoe deflected with ease, countering in a blur that stopped an inch from Aya's throat. "See? Your doubt was louder than your strike." Aya bit her lip. "I was afraid of being wrong." Tomoe lowered her weapon. "The hesitant die by precision. When the moment comes, do not question your training act. Perfection is the grave of action." Hesitation, as modern psychology notes, activates the brain's conflict monitoring circuits, which weaken confidence and delay response. Tomoe knew instinctively that doubt is a delay, and delay is death. "Strike without hesitation," she said. "You can correct your course after the blow, but not if you never swing." Lesson 6. Bleed for your standards. The next week, rain fell relentlessly. The camp was muddy, cold, and miserable. Aya wanted to rest, but Tomoe stood in the rain, sword in hand. "We train," she said simply. Aya's limbs were heavy, her spirit thin. After hours, she collapsed to her knees. Tomoe knelt beside her. "The body bleeds for what the soul demands. Weakness leaves through sweat and struggle." Aya's breath came in ragged gasps. "Why must it be so hard?" "Because excellence demands proof," Tomoe said. "You say you want mastery? Then show it with sacrifice. You cannot have the strength of a warrior with the habits of a child." Study at Harvard once found that those who persist through repeated failure develop higher long-term motivation, muscles, mind, and will all grow through resistance. "Bleed for your standards," Tomoe whispered. "The world will not give you excellence. You must steal it from your own comfort." Lesson 7. Died before you quit on the final day of training? Tomoe and Aya faced each other at sunrise. The fog lifted slowly. Revealing the scarred earth of the field, Tomoe spoke softly. The last lesson is the hardest. You must die before you quit. Aya's eyes widened. Die? Tomoe's gaze was calm. Not the death of body, the death of surrender. The death of the self that pleads for mercy when things are hard. The warrior dies to excuses and in doing so, becomes free. They fought until Aya's arms were heavy, her vision blurred. She stumbled, fell, and gasped. I can't. Tomoe raised her sword again. Then died to that thought. Aya stood once more. Her body shaking but her spirit alive. She attacked with everything she had. Her movements clean, pure, free of hesitation. When it was over, she dropped her sword and fell to her knees, smiling through exhaustion. Tomoe looked at her with quiet pride. Now you live. To die before quitting means to surrender everything but purpose. To kill the voice of comfort before it kills your potential. Tomoe turned her face toward the sun. The world will not remember your comfort, she said, but it will remember your endurance. Chapter 6. The Dawn Duel. The morning was quiet. Too quiet. Mist rolled across the training field like a living thing, curling around the broken posts and scattered weapons. The camp slept, but Aya was awake, standing barefoot on the cold ground with her wooden sword in hand. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, steady and deliberate. Every breath she drew carried the echo of Tomoe's voice, the weight of the 7 ruthless lessons carved into her spirit. Tomoe approached silently, her armor muted beneath a dark cloak. Today, she said, you will fight not to win, but to reveal. Aya bowed deeply. Reveal what, master? Tomoe's eyes were sharp as lightning. Whether you've become your own enemy or your own weapon. From across the yard stepped another student, Keto, the one who had humiliated her weeks ago. His smirk carried the arrogance of easy victories. So the weakling returns, he said. Let's hope she can at least stay on her feet this time. Aya didn't answer. The old Aya would have looked away, flooded with shame, but the new Aya simply breathed. She had learned to be fierce in stillness, to master the chaos within before the chaos outside could touch her. The moment she exhaled, her fear lost its voice. Tomoe raised her hand. Begin. Kato lunged first, fast and aggressive. His strikes were wide, powerful, but loud, a storm with no discipline. Aya stepped aside, her movements calm, fluid, deliberate. She didn't meet his rage with rage. She met it with control. When his blade came down again, she deflected with the simplicity of instinct. No thought, no hesitation, only flow. Minutes passed. His energy began to fade. The more desperate his attacks became, the calmer she grew. And then, in one perfect moment of stillness, Aya moved. Her strike landed clean against his chest, not out of anger, but out of clarity. The thud echoed through the mist. Kato fell back, stunned. Tomoe stepped forward, her voice low but resonant. That, she said, is what it means to die before you quit. Aya bowed, sweat and breath mingling with the dawn air. For the first time, she didn't feel proud. She felt empty, and in that emptiness, peaceful, Tomoe approached, resting a hand on her shoulder. You no longer fight for victory, she said. You fight to express truth, that is mastery. Aya looked up. Then, am I finally strong? Tomoe smiled faintly. No, you are finally honest. Strength is born from honesty with yourself, not bravado. The duel became legend in the camp. Not because Aya defeated her rival, but because she did it without hatred. She had learned that the true battle was never against another blade. It was always against her own impatience, vanity, and fear. Tomoe's teachings had turned her from a trembling apprentice into a silent storm, calm, decisive, unmovable. That night, as the camp celebrated around the fire, Aya sat alone, staring at the stars. Tomoe joined her quietly. The world will always call you weak, she said, because you are not what it understands. But if you remain loyal to discipline, even the wind will bow before your focus. Aya nodded slowly. Then this path never ends. Tomoe looked toward the mountains. It ends only when you choose comfort over growth. The firelight flickered between them, and in its glow, Aya finally understood what her master had been teaching her all along. That true strength was not violence, but the refusal to be ruled by weakness. Chapter 7, Tomoe's Code for the Modern World. Centuries later, Tomoe's code still applies. perhaps even more now than in her own time. Our battlefields have changed, but our struggles have not. We no longer fight with swords and spears. We fight with choices, habits, and distractions every morning. You pick up your weapon, your focus, and you decide whether to fight or to surrender. Tomoe's first commandment was be fierce in stillness in your life. This means learning to pause before you react. When you're angry, when you're anxious, when you're overwhelmed, breathe. Most people lose control because they are enslaved by reaction. The warrior's power comes from restraint. Her second lesson, choose pain over comfort, is the heart of modern discipline. Every meaningful transformation is born in discomfort. Waking up early, saying no to distractions, training when tired, studying when unmotivated. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever could. Respect fear, then cut it down. Fear today wears new armor. Fear of rejection, fear of missing out, fear of being ordinary. Tomoe would tell you that fear never disappears. It only bows when faced directly, when you take consistent, small actions against what scares you. The mind rewires itself to associate fear with progress instead of paralysis, detached from approval. Every time you check for likes, comments, or validation, you hand your peace to strangers. Warriors act for truth, not applause. You cannot master your life if your mood depends on others' opinions. Strike without hesitation. Opportunities fade faster than doubt. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll die waiting. Clarity comes from action, not contemplation. Bleed for your standards. Excellence is a lonely road. You cannot expect to stand out if you live like everyone else. The discipline to practice longer, endure more, and demand more from yourself is the difference between mediocrity and mastery. And finally, die before you quit. Every person faces a moment when the path seems impossible. That is when most people give up, right before they would have changed. Persistence, in its purest form, is spiritual. To persist is to declare that you will not be broken by this world. A neuroscientist from Kyoto University once described this mental toughness as adaptive stress conditioning. The human brain, when consistently exposed to challenge, becomes stronger at self-regulation. In other words, the same hardships you avoid are the ones designed to fortify your mind. Modern psychology calls it resilience. Tomoe Gozen called it honor. Your discipline reshapes your brain. Your choices rebuild your identity. Each time you resist the easy path, you carve new pathways in the mind. Pathways that turn chaos into order, fear into clarity, weakness into calm. If Tomoe Gozen had lived today, she would not have fought with a sword. She would have fought with focus. The rarest weapon of all, Chapter 8, the blade of routine. To live with Tomoe's discipline in the modern world, you must simplify your battlefield. The mind cannot master 1,000 fronts. Begin with these 5 daily practices. Small, simple, unrelenting. Step 1, rise before comfort. The moment you wake, your first battle begins. When you choose to delay, you train yourself to lose. Rising early isn't about the clock. It's about reclaiming control from laziness. Step 2, do one hard thing every day. Train your resilience by choosing discomfort, whether it's exercise, cold water, or a difficult conversation. Discomfort is your dojo. Step 3, speak less, act more. Tomoe's silence was not weakness. It was preparation. Every time you replace talking with doing, your energy sharpens. Step 4, seek no praise. Do your work quietly. When the results speak, your words can stay silent. Step 5, end your day with gratitude and reflection. A warrior who never reflects becomes reckless. Each night, ask yourself, did I win my battles today? Then plan tomorrow's war in time. This discipline becomes identity, and once it becomes identity, you cannot betray it, because it's who you are. Chapter 9, the battle within. The night before her departure, Aya sat by the dying embers of the fire. Her sword laid across her knees. The camp was silent, the mountains dark and endless. The once trembling girl who had arrived with shaking hands and hollow eyes was gone. In her place sat a woman of unshakable calm, scarred by discipline, but purified by it. Tomoe approached quietly, her armor glinting faintly in the firelight. For a long time, she said nothing. She simply watched Aya, as if memorizing her shape before the dawn took her away. Finally, she spoke. Do you know what the true battle is? Aya shook her head slowly. No, master. Tomoe pointed to the sky, where clouds drifted across a full moon. It is not with men, nor warlords, nor rivals, it is within. The mind will rise against you 1,000 times, whispering that you've done enough, that you deserve rest, that you're not meant for more. Each time, you must strike it down. Aya nodded, her gaze firm. And when it rises again? Tomoe smiled faintly. Then strike again. The warrior's work is never finished, not because life is cruel, but because strength must be earned each day. The two women sat in silence. The crackle of the fire sounded like distant applause from unseen spirits. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and steel. At dawn, Aya rose, strapped her sword across her back, and bowed deeply before Tomoe. "You have given me everything," she said. Tomoe shook her head. "No, I only removed what was holding you back. You gave yourself everything else." Aya bowed once more. "Then what remains for me to learn?" Tomoe's voice softened. "Teach others what you now know, but remember, the world will not understand your discipline. It will call you cold, obsessive, unfeeling. Do not bend to their softness. The strong are not cruel." They are clear. Aya felt the truth of those words settle deep in her chest. She turned toward the rising sun, the same sun that had witnessed her fear. Her breaking, her transformation, the golden light spilled over her face, and for the first time, she felt peace not as the absence of struggle, but as mastery within it. She whispered to herself, the enemy was never out there, and then, quietly, "It was always me." Tomoe watched her student walk down the mountain path, disappearing into the morning fog. There was no pride in her eyes, only understanding. Every warrior must eventually leave the teacher behind and face the endless battle alone. The story of Aya and Tomoe is not ancient. It is eternal. You are Aya. Your mind is your battlefield. The weakness you despise, the fear you hide, the doubt that delays your progress. They are not your enemies. They are your training partners. Every failure is a chance to build your spirit. Every hesitation is a moment to practice courage. Every pain is a test of how deeply you desire mastery. Tomoe's code is not a relic of war. It's a manual for modern life. To face your mornings with focus. To endure discomfort with dignity. To act without validation. To master yourself before the world demands your obedience. The modern warrior no longer wears armor, but they still bleed through long hours of work, through sacrifices made in silence, through relentless repetition when no one applauds. Discipline today is the sword of the unseen hero, sharp, patient, and precise. You cannot control what happens outside you, but you can always control your posture, how you stand, how you think, how you respond. You can choose to act from clarity rather than chaos. You can choose to stay still while others panic. You can choose the narrow path of mastery while the crowd chases shortcuts. If you live this way, you will be misunderstood, you will walk alone, but you will walk with peace. A modern psychologist from the University of Kyoto once described the human mind as a battlefield between impulse and purpose. Most people surrender at the first strike of discomfort, but those who endure, those who train their attention daily, begin to reshape their reality from the inside out. This is what Tomoe understood long before science had words for it. Discipline rewires destiny. And so, when you wake tomorrow, remember this. Your first battle will be against the comfort that whispers. Not today, that voice is your enemy, but also your teacher. Slay it kindly, slay it completely. Because when you master that moment, when you rise, when you act, when you move forward despite the noise, you are no longer merely surviving life. You are commanding it in the end. Tomoe's final lesson is simple yet merciless. The way of strength is not in conquering the world, but in conquering yourself every single day. If you can live that truth, if you can keep your blade sharp, your heart steady, and your purpose clear, you will walk a path that few dare to follow, but all secretly admire. And when the world tests you, as it surely will, you will smile quietly, just as Tomoe did before her battles, and whisper, "I am ready," because readiness, for the true warrior, is not a feeling, it is a decision. Chapter 10. Epilogue. The Path of the Unbreakable. If this story reached you, it's because there's already a warrior inside you, waiting for the fog to clear. You don't need to become someone new. You only need to strip away what's weak, distracted, and afraid. That is the work, that is the path. This channel is your dojo, a place for those who choose strength over comfort, Discipline over chaos and truth over ease. Subscribe not to follow, but to train. Leave a comment to mark your step on this journey, because every great transformation begins with a single act of defiance, the decision to fight the battle within. And if you walk this path with patience and fire, one day you too will stand in stillness, calm as the river before the storm, and realize that the warrior you were chasing has always been you.